to talk to you real serious. There's nobody here but us. John, what we need to know, and the people need to know if you want to share, what is John Corabi's top 5 must-have albums?
Good one.
Not bands. I'll let you think about this a little bit. We need 5 albums. I got a pen here, Corabi.
Top 5.
Top 5 must-have albums that are very important to you growing up that you can't live without. I know 10 is the number you'd like to have, but it is our 5 top finest.
Okay. Let's do A, hands down, number 1. I'm going to say Abbey Road. Come together. I don't know what it is about that record. I never tire of listening to that, especially side 2, the big medley thing. And I'm like, I mean, I just sit there sometimes and I go, fuck, like the amount of tracks that they had available and all this other kind of shit. The fact that they were able to put that together the way that they did is just, it's there's genius and beyond genius. That record, side 2 and Sgt. Pepper's just blows me away. But let's say Abbey Road, number 1.
Abbey Road. And the way they did that record, because technically it was their last record, and the way they ended it, the end.
Yes.
Was it meant to be the end, or they just happened to release the track the end?
And in the end,
I don't know, but see, now for me, that record, not only the songwriting, production, all that other shit, there was something about that record. There was 2 songs on that record that actually really made me like open my ears and eyes to Paul McCartney as a vocalist.
Mm-hmm.
Now, mind you, this was 69, so I was maybe 10 years old when it came out originally. But the 2 songs that made me want to be kind of a singer was Oh Darling. I'll never do you no harm, which we used to cover back in the day, and Golden Slumbers, because he approaches them the same way. Like the verses are a certain way, and then he does this thing with his voice where he kicks it into overdrive.
smiles awake you when you rise.
You know, and I just remember hearing Oh Darling, that bridge section, and the chorus of Golden Slumbers when he kicks in, and like the hairs on my arm would just stand up. I'm like, I don't know what I'm hearing right now or why this is connecting to me, but that's what I want to do someday.
Sleep, pretty darling, do not cry.
Someday.
He would get that old bluesy tone, that rasp. He'd get the soul in his tone of his voice, and it's
those 2 songs. I mean, still to this day, I covered Oh Darling with the Union. I mean, that was one of our staples at the Cat Club. And still on occasion on an acoustic show, I'll pull it out of the hat, blow the dust off of it.
Never gets old. It never gets old,
dude. People just want to hear that song. So
the production is great.
Oh, darling.
The drum solo at the end on side 2, the little drum.
Which legend has it, as a little thing, was actually Paul McCartney, not Ringo.
That's right.
So, and then one of the greatest, I think George Harrison was coming into his own as a songwriter. If you think about it, 2 songs on that record he had, Something.
Something in the way she moves.
And Here Comes the Sun.
Here comes the sun. Do-do-do-do.
And
call it a day. That's it.
When you listen to the bass line of Something, which could be another song on it completely on itself.
Yes. And it's funny. I told you earlier that I had learned how to do Pro Tools, and you know, it was funny when I was in Ratt. Robbie Crane used to sit in the back of the bus, and he would noodle around with his bass, and he'd come up and he would go, "Oh, dude, Geddy Lee, and oh, dude, you got to hear this thing that Have you ever listened to the bass that John Paul Jones does on this?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Who's your, we were talking one day, who's your favorite bass player?" And I said, "McCartney." And he goes, "What?" I said, "All right, here's the deal, bro." I said, "You're teaching yourself like bass shit." I go in the back lounge and listen to the bass on one song and come back and tell me that you don't think Paul McCartney is a great bass player. So he goes, "All right." I go, "Listen to Penny Lane. Go back and learn Penny Lane." And he came back. He was like, "Dude, you're fucking hands down. You're right." And even that Rick Rubin thing, 3-2-1. Did you watch that yet?
Yes. Great.
That's all they talk about really is Paul McCartney's. I mean, it's very musical and how they did different things, but a majority of it is how the fuck did you think of this bass line to go with that song? Do you know what I mean?
It's fantastic. Fantastic.
And then to boot, he sang at the same time.
Okay, what do we got for 2?
I'm going to say 2. I'm going to go with, it's hard to say. These 2 records for me epitomize Led Zeppelin. Was Led Zeppelin 4 was really the record that turned me on to Zeppelin. But I'm also kind of torn because I think the one record that really encapsulated every part of Zeppelin is Physical Graffiti. That one is, again, it kind of touches base on all the different influences that Zeppelin had. Blues, the odder arrangements like Kashmir, the heaviness, just everything, acoustic stuff. It's got everything all in that one record. So I'm going to say Physical Graffiti. And again, production is insane. Yeah, trampled underfoot. Then the Kashmir had brought in like Indian influences, Moroccan. It's just all over the place, but it just really captures them in their element, the studio. Just for sheer, I thought he was a genius. I liked his entire thing, but I think the record that really epitomized the artist and piqued my interest in the artist, I'm going to have to go with David Bowie, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars.
Wow.
Again, another fucking album that's just, every song is great. Great. He had this way of just going song to song, like you just never knew what the next song was going to sound like in comparison to the one before it. Mm-hmm. I just remember seeing that record, him in the red phone booth, and then I and the image with the lightning bolts and the crazy air, but then hearing that record, I'm like, there is not one bad song on this fucking album. It was, and still to this day, I still have it on my phone. It's such a great landmark record for him.
Ziggy play guitar, jamming good with Queen.
Bowie at that point was not really yet. He was kind of up and coming, but it was only certain pockets like Philadelphia, New York, Texas, LA, Chicago. There was only certain cities he was really popular in. Philly was insane. And if you remember, he did a few years later, he did a record called David Bowie live at the Tower Theater. It was in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
So
wow.
he was, but when I got that record, I was like, wow, first of all, what am I seeing?
Guitar.
And then, you know, and even the subject matter, you know, I remember, you know, listening and looking at the lyrics going, oh, Droogie, don't crash here. What does that mean?
No, hey, oh, Droogie, don't crash here. It's only for one.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And looking up words, and it was just such a fucking great album. So I would say that's definitely my strong third.
It was heavy.
And
It was heavy.
Still to this day, one of my favorite songs, I do it in my acoustic sets sometimes, is that's Lady Stardust. I always related to that song because I was into that stuff. And in the first line says, people stared at the makeup on his face, laughed at his long black hair and his animal grace. I'm like, sorry, that was it for me.
Laughed at his long black hair, his animal grace.
The boy in the bright blue jeans jumped up on the stage, and I'm like, okay, sold, done.
Yes, he was so right. The song went on forever.
Yeah. He painted a picture of rock and roll.
Yeah.
He really did.
And then if you go back and you look at his other stuff like Life on Mars and Changes, and but I think it was Life on Mars. They did a video, a documentary on David Bowie, how he would create songs. And Rick, I didn't know this, but Rick Wakeman from Yes played all those keyboard parts, like the piano stuff. And he even said, he goes, he was so odd in the studio because you would do a progression and you would think, okay, now it's time to go to the chorus. And David would go, no, let's just figure out how to get from that chord. We're going to take the same progression and move up a step. And it would just go in these random places. And it worked.
It worked.
Dude, he was
Oh,
such a
sax.
genius.
Yeah, he really was a genius. He knew how to change it and break the rules and make it work. That you wouldn't normally
Visually and audio, like in a visual sense.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I got into an argument, and I don't want to dwell on this too long, but I remember, and you remember her as well. My second ex-wife, she was just raving to me about how much of a genius Marilyn Manson was. I go, but he's really not doing anything different. She goes, well, how can you say? And then we got into this big, huge argument. She's like, you're just pissed because he's original and you're not. And I go, so I'm sitting there arguing with her. I go, so I get it. But I go, in the grand scheme of things, Marilyn Manson is doing nothing more than taking Alice Cooper, mixing it with David Bowie and Trent Reznor and making it his own. Yeah. So a few months go by, and the independent film channel, IFC, they played, there's a movie where they do that last tour, the last show of the Ziggy Stardust days. And I got to show you this. I got to give you a little visual. But she's like, oh, he's a genius. He's a genius. He's a genius. So I'm watching this thing on David Bowie, and it finally dawned on me. There was a backdrop. He had this backdrop. Marilyn Manson had a logo that went like this. It was that. That was his backdrop. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching this David Bowie thing, and it dawned on me the backdrop was this giant red backdrop with that logo. The exact same thing. So I called my ex-wife. Come here, get in here. Look at this. Look at the stage. And I froze. I like paused it. I go, look at that. Do you see anything about this? And she's looking at it. She's just staring. And she goes, holy shit. He's using Marilyn Manson's. I go, it's not Marilyn Manson's. That's David Bowie. 1971. Marilyn Manson was still swimming in his dad's scrotum. That's David Bowie. Fuck off.
You
know what? This argument's been over for years. I swear to God, if you watch that movie, it's a live performance. And then David Bowie at the very end of it walks up to the microphone and he says, thank you all. This is the last time you will see Ziggy Stardust character. And they filmed it all. And sure as shit, the backdrop is that giant circle with the crooked arrow right down the middle of it. I go, there's Marilyn Manson for you. Sorry.
There it is. Number 4.
I'm going to go a little out on a limb. I'm a huge Grand Funk fan. I love all of their records, but I think the one that encapsulates like just their awesomeness it's actually a live record. Grand Funk, Caught in the Act. I still listen to that thing. I mean, there's drum solos, there's guitar solos. The vocals are insane.
I know you get to like it if you give it a chance now. Come on, baby. I want to reach.
And it's them a little later in their career.
Come on and ride the railroad.
And they broke up after that. So this was kind of towards the end of their career. But they had all the songs, all the great songs on it, some obscure ones. But it was a great sounding live album. But it kind of goes like, it kind of encapsulates their whole career live. And I just played this for a friend of mine, and I was in Jackson, Mississippi a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about live albums. He's like, oh, this live record and that live record. I go, pulled my phone, plugged it into his dashboard, and I said, listen to the mix and the tones and everything on this record. And he couldn't believe it. He was like, fuck, it's so good. So I'm gonna go with Grand Funk, Caught in the Act. I highly recommend just listening to. I mean, I think it was recorded at Dodger Stadium in 1973 or 4.
Yeah,
and they're just
right.
they're on fire on this on this album. So I'm gonna go with Grand Funk, Caught in the Act.
Okay, number 5.
Aerosmith Rocks. Just the most straight ahead, kick you in the balls, just brutal assault of the senses, like Aerosmith just following up Toys in the Attic. As great as they were on Toys in the Attic, they somehow raised it a bar, and just, I mean, that record is just 5 dudes completely firing on all cylinders, and just the writing was great. Again, it was a different time. Aerosmith Rocks, I think it's like 34 minutes long. It's 8 songs of just punch in the face.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And again, I remember as clear as but listening to the radio in my bedroom to the rock line, Bob Coburn rock line. And he had them on. And it's like, I just remember him saying, Aerosmith's new record, they played a couple little snippets from it. And Aerosmith's record drops tomorrow, 9:00. Mind you, I did not go to school the next day. I was at a fucking record store buying rocks. That song was perfection. you know, and there's some honorable mentions as well. There's some Queen albums that I think are like that. Guns N' Roses, hands down, Appetite for Destruction.
Yeah.
Is another perfect record. But Rocks, to me, I was like, fuck. They were punky, they were snotty, they were funky. They had the piano ballad at the end. It was awesome.
Yeah, they did have it all. They had a good mixture of all the above.
Yeah, like you were talking about CBGBs.
Yeah.
You know, I remember reading articles about them, you know, about Aerosmith, and like, oh, we met Steven at Max's Kansas City, or oh, we met Steven at CBGB's for a beer or a drink. And I just remember hearing like especially I think it's called Lickin' a Promise. That song is just punky, snotty, New York. It's got that stank all over it. Johnny come lately, I want to sat it in. You know, it's like, fuck. It was everything.
It was everything. It was raw. It was in your face. It was real. I think if that record, you definitely wouldn't have an Appetite for Destruction, you know, because that really was the beginning for an album like that.
Yeah, and if you listen to some of those guitar lines that Izzy does is on like It's So Easy, and that's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of
the edge,
little bit, the edginess of Aerosmith Rocks. And
I agree.
I totally see those two records. There's two perfect records, but two different bands. But I can't help but listen to Appetite and think of Rocks. And I mean, everybody talks about, you know, the possibility of implosion with Guns N' Roses. I mean, that was Aerosmith at that point in they were full blown like drugs, craziness, buying fucking airplanes and dating, you know, crazy chicks and guns, and it's unbelievable. You know, if you really sit and look at those two records, they were fucking both perfect albums, and the chemistry in the bands were very, very similar.
They made it sexy to be a rock star. They really did.
They made it sexy to be, you know,
this danger, like, these outlaws of rock. Best song on that record, would you say?
On Rocks?
Yeah.
That's a hard one, dude. You know what? I'll tell you what one. My first introduction to it was Back in the Saddle. I was like, fuck, when I heard it on a little bit of it on Bob Coburn, I was like, But the song that gets me every time, and it's a deep song, is the song, it's called Combination. And it's one where Tyler and Perry both take turns singing, but that riff, let me see if I can, I don't know if I can, it's such a great riff. It's so sloppy, and it goes. Sorry, my guitar's out of tune.
Oh, that's cool, man.
It's such a great riff. If you get a chance, listen to Combination. And then at the end, it's just complete chaos and bedlam. And he's talking, like I used to listen to it as a kid, and he goes, what are the lyrics to it are fucking genius. These lyrics are awesome. The street is cold, the dawn is gray. My heart says no, but my head says stay. My work is finished, or so I've been told. Can't part the three of us once we got hold. The street is cold, the dawn is gray. I forgot the name. I took a shot on my chin. I'm rearranging my game. Tell by the shape that I'm in. I find my own fun, sometimes for free. I got to pay it. Come looking for me. I'm walking on Gucci, wearing Yves Saint Laurent. Barely stay on, because I'm so goddamn gaunt. It's
That's
fucking
great.
the lyrics are just insane. It's just
That's great.
fashion clothing, just in the shit, and then the whole song just goes in a completely little direction, and it's awesome. So that's my
there it is. We'll end it on that note. That's John's top 5 must-have records right here on our show. Top 5 must-have albums. Also, check out John's new album out here, or his new single out. It's Casabella. It's out. Links are in the description now, everybody. We're out of here, kids. Thank you all. Bang!
Talking wax, alright. Talking wax. Talking wax.
That's right, everybody. John's on the phone. He's telling people right now to subscribe and check us out and check our other playlist out there right now. We'll all see you guys all later. John, tell them on the phone where the action's at. Tell them all, John.
right here with Stefan ADIKA.
We'll see you all later. Bye.